things are improving. We're going to see some drier, warmer weather for the weekend, still below normal, but we're starting to trend back to maybe summer. And that leads me to the next topic of discussion, which is the tropics, which we know are getting pretty active. And we had some things happen overnight, Tim. And it's funny, last night when we talked about it on the show here, we talked about, hey, maybe this thing on the coast was starting to trend a little bit away from the coast. And lo and behold, today, the trends continue in that direction. Not only do they trend offshore, they're trending weaker. So things are looking up for people even on the coast that we might not see. I wouldn't say no impacts. There'll probably be some rough surf and maybe a few showers. But the impacts from any tropical development on the coast seem to be trending down.
I think so, and I think it's a good, word of advice or caution that, when you're far enough away or several days away, there's always things that can change. And in this case, kind of a good reason that we were saying, don't cancel those plans if you're headed out to the coast. There turns out to be probably no reason to. It looks like you might have some wet weather at times out east, especially, immediate coastlines. But for Charlotte, for Greensboro, inland North Carolina, I'm not expecting really any rain here at this point. Hopefully not anyway. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are all trending pretty dry as far as I can tell. What about for your area?
Yeah, we're trending dry. We're going 20% or less for pretty much the next several days, just because we might see some of that mist and drizzle in the morning. I think one thing that'll happen, because our ground's saturated and we've seen so much rain, it's still kind of soupy. I think morning low clouds and fog are probably going to be a thing we're going to see every morning before we kind of mix things out a little bit. But yeah, looking at the tropics in general, I know we have the wide view, you have the wide view, you have the close view. We have 3 systems out there that we're kind of monitoring. We've got Dexter, which I can't believe is still a tropical storm, holding on to its strength out there. I thought yesterday it might be back to depression or a remnant low. We've also got a pretty beefy tropical wave that came off the coast of Africa that has a 60% chance of development. That actually looks like the highest probability of doing something, but it looks like a fish storm. It stays out to sea. And then our little low closer to us, it has a 30% chance and now is moving away. But there's also some longer term stuff that looks like maybe weak disturbance in the Gulf at some point, maybe the Caribbean. But there's also a lot of misinformation out there. I know we've harped on this before, but I feel like we got to bring it up again because I've been hearing a lot about a hurricane hitting South Carolina in the next week, and there's just nothing remotely close to that happening. But as you mentioned, I think it's a good time to remind everybody we're heading towards the peak of the hurricane season. We need to start somewhat paying attention on a regular basis to what's happening out there. And today was also a significant day, Tim, because I don't know if you caught this, but Colorado State updated their hurricane season forecast today.
Yeah, and I think they were also highlighting that 2-week period over the next couple of weeks as being a better chance to be above active rather than below active, right? So that'll be something that we look on a sub-seasonal level that, hey, we should really be on the lookout the rest of the month because there are those signs that things are on an uptick. But let's take a look at the forecast here. It looks like they didn't change all that much compared to where they were back in April.
Yeah, and I should emphasize there was an update in between April and now that was identical to what we have right now. So I wanted to be in full transparency. Their early season forecast, which comes out in April at the Hurricane Conference down at South Padre, was 17, 9, and 4. They did an update. Was it in May, Lily, that they did it?
There was one in July.
July. Okay,
11th.
So they did one in July that actually was 16, 8, and 3. And so today's update, while basically the same numbers, I did peel back some cool things that you saw too, Tim, that they're kind of hinting at maybe some increased activity later this month or mid-month going into September, which is, kind of what we expect. But it is interesting that the forecast has stayed pretty consistent. And I do want to show you, too, I have the forecast from NC State. We got to stay local, right? We got to give the NC State forecast. The NHC, which is NOAA's forecast and average, just to put this all in perspective. So this is all updated. This is the latest that all of them have. So you see 12 to 15 storms from NC State, 16 from Colorado State, 13 to 19 from NOAA, and the average is 14. So pretty much everybody's still trending towards above average. And if you think we're already at the D storm and we're just into August, I think from a named storm standpoint, things are kind of trending exactly where you would expect from these forecasts.
They are, and it's always good to remind ourselves of the average too, because especially we've been kind of in a period of above average activity, where most years have been pretty much above average. It's good to remind ourselves about that, because 14 named storms to me, as of the last couple of years, doesn't even sound like that many. But that's the average amount. And it seems like this year a little bit more close to average. It is interesting, Brad. I don't know if you looked at this or talked much about this in your forecast, but the sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic are kind of interesting this year compared to last and the years prior. They're not quite as scalding hot as they had been. It's still above average mainly overall, but kind of an interesting pattern that's kind of shaped out the last week or two.
Yeah, it's always a tough one, because you're right. They are way cooler than they were last year, but last year and the year before, we got to remember, we're like these crazy, insane high temperatures. So while technically cooler than last year, they're still pretty warm, but it is a pretty dramatic change. And I think I have the sea surface anomaly map here. I'm going to widen it out here. You could see it's still above average, but it's much cooler than last year. If this is compared to average, so it's like, so that's like, you got to tell you this is compared to average. Compared to last year, there would be a lot of blue in the Atlantic right now, because it would be well below last year. But last year we had record-breaking temperatures. I mean, there was water temperatures around the Keys. Remember last year that were like 100 degrees? It was like crazy, like bathtub. And so what I do think is interesting is in the Atlantic, it seems to be a little cooler than last year, but in the Eastern Gulf, it's trending a little warmer, I think, because of that ridge that was over us has actually warmed a lot of those areas closer to home. So those homegrown systems are something we're going to have to watch pretty closely going forward. But yeah, there's definitely some differences this year compared to last year in the Atlantic as far as temperatures are concerned. And I'm also like showing this because I like to see if La Nina is still kind of trying to come. It looks like we're still kind of neutral. There's nothing that's really and the La Nada stage might be what we end up with the rest of the season. So there was this hint of a weak La Nina, but I think it's going to stay neutral through the end of the season, which could lead us to talking about winter weather down the road, forecast-wise, what that's going to look like. But I'm not putting that out there yet. We've got to get through the hurricane season first.